Welcome. When we are faced with personal or societal tragedies, they are often followed by other huge disappointments. We may experience fear, thinking that the pain will never end. This video is about how to see a broader context, to see all life situations operating as interdependent pieces of a very large puzzle, as triggers towards trust. To trust that the puzzle is made of love's greater context and love's purposes and love's greater solutions. Although we do have to cope with pain, we can transcend despair and find purpose, motivation, and inspiration even in the tragedy. I'm Dr. Lynette and you're watching Wisdom's Peaceful Harmony. And if you want to be sure to be notified of future videos, please be sure to subscribe. And if you like this video, please click on the like button. So when tragedy occurs, pain, sadness, and grief can be strong in the experience. And even as time goes by, other tragedy or disappointments may follow. And we may experience fear because it can really feel like the pain is just never going to end. But when we broaden our context to see from a greater, grander view, to see all situations operating as interdependent pieces of a huge puzzle, and trust that the puzzle is made of love's purposes beyond anything that our minds can understand, then we can transcend the pain. And although still feeling the pain, we can be filled with the love that helps us heal and supports us as we search to discover how the tragic situation fits into a greater context. As we search to understand and orient ourselves to a new, broader context. Not a new version of the old, but a context that transcends the old. It's difficult to believe that there's purpose to each tragedy when there seems to be reasons to be fearful or desperate, and when we have no proof that there is a bigger picture or a bigger context. But we can transcend minds that see only despair and open our minds to the wisdom that transforms our minds to know that even the worst event in history can be used by love to trigger transcendence of previous understandings, to trigger transcendence of previous behaviors and transcendence of previous beliefs for individuals and for society. Before I talk about transcending a sense of despair and tragedy, I want to give an example of what I mean by orienting to a new context that transcends the old context. And this example is not about tragedy, but I want to explain transcendence before I talk about tragedy. In this example, the old context is a belief system that believes that opposite ideas must cause conflict and discomfort. And the transcendent context unites ideas of love. It unites the ideas in love, and by uniting them in love, they become ideas of love. So I'm going to use the topic of creation. So some people orient around the idea that humans are passive participants in a predestined evolution of our species. And other people orient around the idea that we are free to be intentionally active participants in creation. People in these two groups may believe that one idea is right and one is wrong. Thus, a context that believes that opposing ideas create division. A transcendent context would operate according to the idea that the two orientations come from one greater context of understanding. And this would unite the different human roles in creation. It would unite the ideas about those roles. Intentional creation activity revealing the unknown and the unexpected, whereby then humans passively accept laws of nature that they did not create and then create intentional decisions from within these laws. like being born into the summation of all the biological activity that took place over time to develop your genetic makeup, and then to be intentional about how to best use your body. So this transcendent orientation to a new context, it transcends the old. So instead of differing ideas causing division, the different and differing ideas, they trigger cooperation and humility. Love's powerful and united transcendent context. Now, back to transcending the despair of tragedy. So sometimes in our lives, we experience the negative first in order to experience the miracles that love can create through us, despite the tragedy. We are faced with both the tragic situation and our freedom to choose to see the situation does have a greater purpose than we may yet see. It's both painful and purposeful when we understand the power of our thought choices. We don't have to choose between pain and purpose. Both exist in the transcendent context. A mind of love's greater context understands that all the pieces of love's purpose come together in time, revealing the bigger picture. Here, we can find purpose and power for each moment. Tragedy can trigger personal and societal transcendence of previous understandings and behaviors and beliefs. When we're in pain and we trust that there is a greater context, then love finds a way to transform and heal us in our tragedy. That's personal or societal. The more that we choose love to control our minds, the more that we will see that what we thought was impossible is possible. And we can help other people know that they can be transformed by love before they have the physical proof too. Being connected in love's wisdom of transcendent unity produces more courage and confidence to imagine an even greater context for each life to be operating from, and a greater context for creating societal systems. The more that minds are in the state of a greater context of love, the more conscious society can be of love, and the more conscious society can be of the possibilities of love's abilities and solutions, despite tragedy and any circumstances. Understand that love transforms anything and anyone who is willing to be transformed. There is a struggle between the fears that life hands us and the opportunities love hands us. We will grow and transform in love or in fear. So let's choose to be guided by love's context that transcends all fear. Using love to join together, we can not only heal, but we can create new ways of being that help us bring purpose to horrible experience and loss. Now, by trusting and obeying what love guides us to believe and do in situations that would otherwise be too overwhelming, we can have more empathy, we can share compassion, and we can appreciate that love's ability to heal makes us stronger than we were before the tragedy. Think about it this way. Differences can keep us apart, or they can show us how we fit together as pieces of a bigger picture. This is also true of different points in time, different points of life, times of joy and times of tragedy. When seeing moments as pieces of a bigger context, we transcend measurements of comfort, of grief, of joy, of loss, and of gain. In the greater context, the transcendent context, we can trust that love gives purpose to everything. Think back on societal tragedies where we were given opportunity to clearly see our interconnectedness. If you want to understand purpose and how you fit into a better world for everyone, You must know that you are interdependent with all life. We can change and grow in love despite the experience that brings us to our knees. By trusting love's inspiration, guidance, and wisdom to move us forward, we transcend our previous life while bringing every bit of love that we had with us into the future. That love actually came to us from the transcendent context. It's in us as we move forward more in it. So love joins us together, but fear brings a feeling of separation, and fear brings the illusion that division can somehow be a solution. Fear blinds us from solutions. When we sense fear, it's a sign that we have clouded our senses. When we experience a difficult situation and we don't see what love is doing or what love is creating, then it's time to shift our focus away from whatever belief is triggering the sense of helplessness or fear. It's important to be aware of our vulnerabilities. When tragedy is followed by more of the unexpected, or when a situation is not unfolding in the way we expected or the way that we had wished, we're vulnerable to narrowing in on the information that we are afraid of, which then creates a sense of helplessness and division. But we need to broaden our context to understand the big picture, the place that we find love's power and solutions. The unexpected occurrence just means that the greater context is beyond our brain's understanding at the time. Realize that our brains don't hold all the information there is. They can't. But we can and must entrust our focus to an elevated and expanded context of love's process. We must trust that there is a greater purpose that we are each a part of. And in that trust lies the solutions that we are seeking. We must continue encouraged to take each step of what love tells us to do. Connect to the greater paradigm where love is infinite, love is intelligent, and love is always in action. When you tap into this, it soothes your brain. Even tragedy can bring us into greater purpose. When we allow ourselves the freedom to be humble and confident in the context of love. Fear doesn't allow us that. Love does. Again, when we sense fear, it's a sign that we have clouded our senses from love. When solutions aren't within the realm of what we sense is possible, then we often dismiss the solutions, saying that they're impossible. But we know that our brains can't possibly know all the possibilities that exist. When we insist that we know what is impossible, then we won't be open to or aware of what we can do. When we trust solutions that are created from love's infinite wisdom, we must invest our thoughts and our actions in love's solutions. We are the expression of love's solutions when we operate in trust that love has infinite power. We don't have to wait to have the hope and joy that we desire. We can see so many of what the world calls miracles now. Our imagination is made of love's power and possibilities, but fear tells us that love can't provide what we need in order to carry out our heart's dreams. But we realize that in the midst of seemingly overwhelming grief and pain, people have followed their hearts to do what seems impossible. People who are full of love often do what seems impossible. For example, some people will walk thousands of miles to save the life of a child or to help somebody in need. There are so many stories about people who have been able to do what we thought was impossible. We love to hear these stories. We can feel the physical sensation of love and power that these stories stir in us, in our minds, in our hearts, and in our bodies. These true stories remind us of the power of love that lives in each of us. It is this power we feel in us as we listen to these stories that is the power that we want to take our next steps with. When people don't use love to understand these stories, they may not believe that the actions of others are done in love. If you're looking at these stories without understanding love, then you'll have a skewed sense of reality. Without knowing about love, some people can't comprehend how a parent could walk 1,000 miles to a foreign country to save the life of their child. Without love, people project their own fearful or selfish intentions and agendas for why someone would make that trip. Fear and division cannot understand the strength of empathy and love's unity. Although it's difficult to believe that love can bring purpose to each tragedy, in love's consciousness of greater understanding, we can transcend and open our minds to the wisdom that transforms our minds to know that no matter the amount of pain, we can trust love to transform and heal us in our tragedy. If you liked this video, please click on the like button and subscribe and turn on your notification bell if you would like to be notified of future videos about love's power, nature, relationships, communication skills, and more. It's free to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Welcome.